Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Chase Jarvis. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you guys very much. That was a long intro, and you were much better than Lady Gaga would have done for sure. Bold statement coming. Prepare yourselves. Right now is the most exciting time in the history of the world to be a photographer. Honestly, come on, put your hands up if you believe me. Okay, those folks can put your hands down. If your hand is down, are you kidding me? We have still photos, there's still cameras that shoot video, we have video cameras that shoot stills. We can take a picture from here and send it through the air to that computer over there. Never before in the history of the world was that possible. It's the most exciting time to be a photographer. And the fact that I'm standing here right now is really a testament to the change that our industry and the world has seen. Let me tell you why. I have no formal education in photography whatsoever. I've done everything pretty much backwards, like the slide says. I actually was in a band in high school. I had no idea how to sing or play an instrument. Seriously. It's backwards. I've never assisted another photographer in my life. I was always an artist, but I went to college on a soccer scholarship. Talk about a crazy path to getting here. I haven't shot my first ad campaign before I'd shot any editorial. That is incredibly different than what it's supposed to be. And that's the takeaway, is today more than ever before, there are more paths to get to where you want to go. In our industry, in any industry in the world, it's a very, very unique time. Again, there's something in it. There's something beautiful about backwards. Speaking of backwards inspired, now talk about the Photographic Masters. I love them. They're amazing. Arbus, Mapplethorpe, Ansel Adams, Steichen, you name it. The list could go on and on. Amazing photographers, vision, great, technique, amazing. But when I think of who really inspired me, I'm also backwards in that regard, because the people that inspired me were the painters of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right here in New York. Rothko, Robert Rauschenberg, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Andy Warhol. Those are the names of the people that really impressed me when I think about what moves me in art. The reason they took the whole thing and flopped it on its head. They weren't just doing better art, they were reinventing it. That's who inspired me. And again, they get this backwards thing going. I'm one hell of a quitter, too. That's backwards. We're told not to quit. And, I overcame a stigma as a jock to become an artist. I had to kind of quit being a jock to be an artist. I quit full speed ahead path to medical school. Did you ever quit going to medical school if you had a chance? You'd get the heck out of there, wouldn't you? I did the same thing. I quit a PhD program in philosophy of art. I was tired of learning about dead white guys. What I really wanted to do was go make something on my own. And we're told in our culture, this drives me nuts, is you're reading a book, you got to finish the book. Who told us that? If a book sucks, put it down. Honestly, it's so fun, it's so simple. Yeah, amen to that. But there's something about, like, we're just, oh man, this really sucks. And we're going to torture ourselves, stick a fork in our eye for another 280 pages. I call baloney on that, and I say close that book. Transparency. Early in my career, I had no mentors. I certainly sought them out. I knocked on the door of so many photographers in Seattle, where I was kind of born and raised. And not only did no one answered that door, but I actually kind of got the stiff arm if I ever saw anybody. Sharing information was totally foreign. No one was interested in doing so. And in another kind of backwards fashion, I was lucky enough to see that this was information, and information was meant to be free. So, I started sharing what I considered a view into the black box of photography. There's this photographer over here with a camera, and then there's this finished photograph, whether it's an ad campaign or a full page in Outside magazine. And not many people knew, especially photographers, what other photographers did in this black box. I wanted to turn that black box inside out and show it to the world. Now, it was very, it sounds very admirable, but back then it was kind of weird. So this black box, at the first start, I was talking to rooms of like 8 people, or my close friends, an ASMP Seattle chapter meeting. I was sharing information. People's eyes big as saucers because I was revealing trade secrets. I couldn't believe it. Blasphemy. Started talking to rooms of 8, and then 40, and then 50, and then 100, and then maybe photography school would have me come talk. Now, as my work was progressing, I started getting to talk to larger and larger groups. I think we had about a standing room here, so probably about 600 people. And this was like, I was really excited to share this message, share that message of transparency with 600 people. I thought, wow, I'm really doing a good job. Then some weird stuff happened. The whole blogging thing, you guys have heard about that, right? The internet? Yeah. Well, as soon as the blogging platform matured, instead of talking to a room full of people, I could talk to the world. That was really interesting and important for me. YouTube matured. Now we could send videos out there in the world for free, thank you, Google, to share what it is that we're doing. That was really, really important. And as a matter of fact, to tell you how far we've come, right now I'm talking, as we just talked, there's probably 600 people, but these cameras, I don't know if you know it, but these are broadcasting live around the world right now. So there's 600 people here. There's probably 10,000 to 20,000 people watching this right now. Talk about scale. In the time it took me to talk to, like just a couple years ago, I was talking to 20 people. Now we're talking to a room full and to 20,000 people around the world. Speaking of, if you're watching out there in the internet universe, why don't you let us know that you're watching? Send some sort of message like from Istanbul or wherever you are and use hashtag CJLive. And that will demonstrate, if anyone's out there paying attention to their phones instead of paying attention to me, don't blame you, how impactful the fact that we've got a world audience is right now. Now, you see all these brands up here. What I was doing is I was taking pictures for these companies, and I was sharing the whole experience. And it started out, the first thing I was really sharing was how we were doing the things we were doing. Because actually, Craig Swanson, I don't know if Craig, if you're listening, he's a partner of mine in Creative Live. He said, you should do a video about that. Oh yeah, I forgot here. We're going to go back for a second. All that rebelling stuff that I was talking about, sharing and getting a stiff arm, it sounds like a cool idea, but you know what? I was completely vilified. And it sounds totally foreign right now, but not only did they give me the stiff arm, but I was actually ostracized by my peers. I was threatened. I was physically threatened. There was the old guard of, you think I'm kidding, I'm serious as a heart attack. The old guard of photography had the conception that what I was doing was taking money from their wallet and handing it, quote, putting it in the hands of an 18-year-old with a Nikon D40. I was vilified, targeted by my peers and the old guard. So, at first, I started sharing to 10,000 people. The first time I ever put a video out, it was very strange. Craig Swanson, good buddy in Creative Live, said, do that video, put it out, and see what happens. I'm like, okay, waste of a day. Put it out on the old internets, and 10,000 people watched it, I think, the first day. Do you remember that video by any chance? No? It was a while ago. 30,000 people over the course of the first week. The next thing we started doing was like, wow, we're actually onto something. Let's share to a larger audience. Something had shifted from that not sharing information to sharing. People were tuned in. So we started revealing bigger productions, everything that was going on, interviewing models and pointing the camera back at myself, all the mistakes that I was making, the little successes here and there, and hundreds of thousands of people started tuning into YouTube to see these videos. I was shocked, but I liked it. And I liked it because all the people that talked trash earlier were now getting a mouthful. Something had changed. Then something more dramatic happened. Many of you may remember the Nikon D90. It was the world's first HD DSLR. I was lucky enough to be the first photographer in the world to get to use that technology. They put that camera in my hands and they said, go shoot a campaign. I had a blast. I went and shot the campaign, was shooting videos, and made a video and said, hey, Nikon, do you guys care if I've been doing this thing. Do you guys care if I share this with the world? And after some thinking, they said, yeah, sure, go ahead. Now, millions of people paid attention. In the course of we're talking months, maybe 18 months, 24 months. I went from talking to a room half this size to talking to millions of people. Not too long ago, I did one of the world's first live photography shoots. 20,000 people watched for 8 hours. I got calls from HBO. How in the hell are you doing this? Insane engagement, something like 40,000 viewer hours over the course of just a photo shoot of me shooting a picture of my friend's band. I knew I was onto something. And if you've been paying attention recently, you will have seen the Nikon D7000 campaign that we just went on. Same thing, huge numbers, a lot of fun, a lot of really good engagement. And there are other stories, but I won't bore you. What I need to do is I need to get to my point. All this information points to a change. That's why, with what I started our little chat here with, I said it's safe to say that this is the most exciting time in the history of the world to be a photographer. And if you didn't put your hand up early, best put it up the next time I ask you. It's the first time in the history of the world that content creators are also distributors. Anybody in this room, if you have something, you took a picture of me in the hallway, you have, within 5 minutes, you can have a blog, a Facebook account, and Twitter, and be sharing your work. The content creators are content distributors. And the best thing about this is we don't have to ask anybody's permission. Until now, everything previous to this, you had to have permission if you wanted to show your work on any sort of scale. Sure, you could show your work to your friends. You could walk around New York with a portfolio, walk into 5 ad agencies in a day. Sure, that's not scale. You needed permission from the gallerist. You needed permission from the magazine editor, the photo editor. You needed permission. You need to get tapped, selected by the ad agency to be able to share your work on any sort of scale. Those days are over. Any person in here can share whatever it is they create with scale right now. Notice I cut the T off of there. So I'm going to make a claim here that the world needs a new culture around creativity. And I think I stand for, and I'm trying to actually convince you guys today to stand for a bridge from the old stuff, the old vision of it, to a new art, a future art. I've been calling it social art. See if you follow me here. The funny thing about social art is, like, what is it? You guys are probably thinking, I thought this to myself. Justice Stewart, from the Supreme Court Justice, he said in 1964 in a landmark case, it was actually about pornography. So you can tell your friends Chase talked about pornography in the PDN keynote address. Justice Stewart said, I can't tell you exactly what pornography is, but I know it when I see it. Same thing with social art. I can't say exactly what it is, but I can tell you that it's creating content and context. It's interdisciplinary. It's participatory. It's interactive. All these words hopefully are conjuring up ideas, and you're saying, yeah. It's symbiotic. Everybody can win. Most importantly, I think social art is incomplete if there's not another person on the end of the pipe, some way, shape, or form, participating in that art with you. So in order to kind of underscore this, I'm going to give you a couple examples from my own work, because we can't really say exactly what it is. I can list a bunch of adjectives. How many are familiar with my songs for reading and drinking stuff? Anybody in the room? Anybody on the internet? Short version, songs for reading and drink is something I created with my yours truly here and a buddy of mine, Michael Hebb. And the short version is that we invite a bunch of amazing musicians, some of the world's best, to sit down at dinner. Big table for about 40 people. And I'm pretty well dialed in the music industry, so we can get great people there, like folks from Pearl Jam, for example, Stone Gossard, a bunch of different indie bands, and maybe like the local hip-hop group, whether it's Seattle, Portland. We do these dinners all over the place. Think about this dynamic for me. Pearl Jam, Stone Gossard wants nothing more. He's tired of big stages. He wants to be back as it was when he started, playing music to a group of small friends in a really safe, intimate environment, having a beautiful meal. And then think about the other end of the table, Tilson, say, from the Saturday Nights. He wants nothing more than to be affiliated with the big guns, with the Pearl Jams and the people who are selling 1 million records. For him, it's a once-in-a-life opportunity. My buddy Hebb, he loves cooking. He loves making meals, creating amazing tables for amazing people. Yours truly, I love taking pictures, shooting video, especially music. I love music, and then sharing that with the world. Everybody wins. And think of the fan. If you're a fan and you get to see Stone Gossard play an F-sharp guitar while he's covering Hank Williams, it's the most unreal thing you've ever seen. Such deep buy-in, such deep conviction. Again, one characteristic. Everybody wins. It's interdisciplinary. We got food and music. We got video, photo. It's participatory. People are standing up and singing. You get the point. Symbiotic, right? Someone puts something out there, someone else benefits. Another example, a couple pictures from the project here. That's Mark Arm from Mudhoney. Another example, anybody out there heard of this little thing called the best camera? All right. Best camera, basically what I did is there's a phrase in photography that the best camera is the one that's with you. Last year I repopularized that phrase with an ecosystem. An ecosystem that consisted of a book, the world's first book of iPhone pictures, an app called Best Camera, and an online community called thebestcamera.com. Now, the book was pretty cool. It was just a little, my basic visual journal. The iPhone app was the world's first photo app. This is just a year ago, where you could shoot, edit, you had 14 filters, 14 billion combinations, and share all within one photo app. That was just last year. It was the first one of its kind. It gives you a little insight on how fast technology is moving. The online mobile site at thebestcamera.com, again, you're seeing a live feed of images, hundreds of thousands of users. We moved 100,000 of those things in the first week. Hundreds of thousands of photographers sharing pictures in real time from 190 countries around the world. That's cool. It's a fire hose of images. There's a conversation going. And what initially had me personally enamored was that I had this visual journal. But ultimately, the thing that impressed me the most was this community aspect. It was the social part of it that made me get up in the morning. This is a unique time. There's some pictures from the book here. Real-time feed of images from around the world. And it was touching people. I was getting emails, hundreds and thousands of emails, and I'm not exaggerating, from a 10-year-old in Malaysia, from a 30-year-old housewife in Canada, a 20-year-old carpenter in Argentina. My mom, my 65-year-old mother, actually she's 64 and she's going to kill me because I said that. My 64-year-old mother, I gave her the iPhone, I gave her an app, and she started taking images. She'd been told her whole life she was not creative. This changed her life, and I witnessed it. Now she sends me iPhone pictures every day. And Mom, if you're listening, respect. Nice stuff. That, again, you guys, that is social art. It's interdisciplinary, it's participatory, it's collaborative, it's interactive. You get the picture. Last example. Just on Thursday, I launched a book, a culmination of a 3-year project. And it's more than just a book, but I'll get to that. And I think I'm going to be signing those things in the back later on. But it's called Seattle 100, 3-year project where I've been documenting people that I know in Seattle are doing amazing things. And this might be like a pinnacle example of social art. It started out, I'm in my hammock, swinging in my backyard, one of those warm fall days in Seattle. I got this amazing walnut tree. I'm looking up through the leaves. And most of my life is not spent in Seattle. It's in cities like New York, Los Angeles, London, Tokyo, where most of my jobs come from. But I wanted to do something that was distinctly Seattle. I'm core Seattle, born and raised. I figured, okay, I'm going to start. There's at least, I made a list. There's like 20 people who are doing amazing things. They're my close friends on a global scale. They're DJs, scientists, restaurateurs. What am I going to do? You know what? I can't collaborate with just one of these people. I'm going to make the list the project. I quickly scribbled down, in the time it took me to drink 1 cup of Seattle coffee, another list of people that I wanted to meet. I fused those 2 lists. That was an amazing group. I asked everyone if they wanted to participate, have their black and white photos shot in my studio to be a part of a book project and maybe something bigger. 100% of them agreed. And off we went. I asked them, hey man, help me, who do you think I should pay attention to? Through their knowledge, I learned about another more than 100 amazing people. And very quickly, I had to start whittling rather than start growing. And these people are, amazing people. So fast forward to last Thursday, the book comes out, a website, an amazing website. It really shows how these people are tied together. All I did was list a bunch of people, pour a little gasoline on that fire, and watched them connect with one another. It's very, very powerful. One moment in a hammock turned into a creative ecosystem, and it's just the beginning. Now I'm asking the community to nominate people in their world at the website, and it's going crazy, you guys. Social art, I've beat it to death, you get my point. A couple last pictures here, because I've been talking instead of clicking. Again, interdisciplinary. We're talking food, music, film, science, interactive. It's symbolic. These people, a hip-hop artist connected with a filmmaker because the hip-hop artist wanted to get in the cinema and the filmmaker was looking for a bald guy with a beard who could rap. Connections. Now, I hear what's going on in your mind. Hi, Scott. I'm well. I hear what's going on in your mind. Like, yeah, but I don't want to do an iPhone app. I don't want to, do a book project. 3 years sounds like a pain in the ass. No, thank you. It's not that hard. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be complicated. I'm asking you to do something very simple. I've kind of given you the how. I feel like I've given you the what. But right now, what you should be saying is, why? Who cares? I'm going to tell you why. There's 2 reasons why. The first one is because it's good for you. It's good for your soul. When you make something, Jasmine, you feel good about making stuff and sending it out into the world? Absolutely you do. It feels good. Humans have this unique ability to create. We should exercise that right, exercise that ability. If you need examples as to whether or not this can help you and you are a career-minded person, that's all I've done. I have no marketing. I make stuff and put it out in the world over and over again. I feel better about it, and the phone rings because I'm making stuff and sending it out in the world. It can be very helpful to your career. That was reason number 1. Reason number 2 is because it's good for the world. It is. A more creative world is a better world. You agree? More creative in business, more creative in politics, more creative in healthcare, more creative in how we spend our time. It's better for the world. We have somewhat of a moral obligation to create and share. We're all in this together, you guys, I promise. We are stuck here. Being creative makes this planet a better place. As an example, another example of why, not just because the world needs it, anybody see this recent issue of Newsweek? Creativity in America, there is a creativity crisis. Now, this particular article was about America. I say it's about the world. 1990, they started doing this study. What they have found since 1990 is that our creativity is plummeting. That's scary. Now, we're all creatives in this room in some way, shape, or form. I would argue that creatives is broadly definable to something that's much larger than this room. But get a load of this. 1,500 CEOs were surveyed. The number one thing they want in a hire, we're talking business. Number one thing they want, creativity. Numero uno. The author of this article, Simone Hein, he's an author, director, doctor of sociology, director of the Mount Baldy Institute, said the current economic crisis in the U.S. is in part the result of a lack of creativity. You need to do it for you. We need to do it for the world. We need to do it for our country. And I don't think that this just talks about America. I think it talks about the world. You guys read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink? Daniel Pink, A Whole New Mind. It's a new era where the right-brained people actually are going to drive the bus. Seth Godin, he comes to mind. You're all artists. So you need to do it for you. You need to do it for the world. But so what? What is it, this thing I do, Chase? I need to hear this from you. What do I do? What's my action item? It's pretty simple. I'm not saying we reinvent the wheel. I'm not making any grand statements up here, although I'm pacing around like I own the joint. I'm not making grand statements. It's ultimately very simple. I'm asking you to put yourself at the center of a new art, a social art where you're creating something and sharing it with those around you. Even if it's your close friends, ideally at scale. Take more pictures. Be fearless. Put yourself out there. That's what it takes. Share more pictures, create more pictures, share more film, shoot more films, Vince. I want to see more films from you. Build tools. The iPhone app is a great tool. And educate. At the end of the day, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the democratization of creativity. And believe me, it starts with you. Thank you. All right. It ain't over yet. Actually, that's the boring part. The exciting part is just about to happen. And join me. Save your applause till the end, if you would. I'm going to bring, so I know that you're tired of hearing me tell this to you. He's like, 19 minutes, Chase. I get it. What I thought might be important is for you to hear from some of my friends, some of my hand-selected friends who I believe have taken advantage of this new era of creativity and made it work for them. So please join me in welcoming, numero uno up to the stage here, Jasmine Starr. Save your applause, please, you guys. I know the applause would be so thunderous for all these people. Jasmine, hello, beautiful.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. Have a seat.
Hi, y'all.
Yep. I don't know if we're going to move this lectern or whatever. Okay, great.
Where are you sitting? I was instructed. You're one.
Okay,
and two.
great. I'm sitting right there.
Okay.
You're going to sit right there. Beautiful. So Jasmine, 4 years ago, she hadn't really picked up a camera. Now, top 10 wedding photographer in the world. That's pretty gnarly. Who we got next? Joey L. Come on up to Joey. Joey was I think I started seeing your work when you were 15. Joey basically, by my understanding, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong in just a minute here, basically started taking pictures, sharing them online, and basically taught himself Photoshop through the internet. He's got an amazing eye, and he is living this life that I'm telling you. Rob Haggart, a photo editor, amazing site. He is the glue. He tells us things that we want to know what photo editors think about our work. He revealed, hi buddy, how you doing? Thank you.
I work inside the black box.
And he works inside the black box, he said.
I used to.
Used to. And then he broke out. And I want you guys to hear from him. Mr. Zach Arias, come on up, man. Zach was the first guy to grow a long, straight beard. I'm just kidding. You guys know Zach. He basically created an entire movement, hi buddy, around using simple gear to make amazing photographs. Lastly, my good buddy, Vincent LaFerre. I see you, Vince. You recognize for sure his amazing film, Reverie. Was the first 1080 film ever shot on an HD DSLR. Again, breaking out of the mold. So now that we're all up here, and I think we're going to move this lectern so that you can see Vince because he's a handsome man, please join me in welcoming this esteemed panel. Woo! What's that? Okay. Yeah, you can. Of course you can pull it. So this is where the production falls apart because this is kind of a talk show. No Jerry Springer, no throwing stuff. I know very much that you guys want to hear from these folks and not me. Now, to the Twitter world out there, I don't know which camera's on, but We're going to be taking questions at twitter.com/ChaseJarvis, #CJLive. Anybody in the world wants to talk to these guys, I will be your proxy. We'll also be taking questions from out there. I do need a laptop that gives me my Twitter feed, so someone's going to have to get that set up with wireless. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Who inspires you? What inspires you, Jasmine? And this is a conversation, okay? If you guys want to interrupt, I fully encourage it. Come on. Talk to me.
Okay, to be quite honest,
Yep.
I'm sitting in this chair, and I feel the energy of the room, and I felt so moved hearing you speak. Now, am I the only person?
She's weeping.
Okay, no, okay, I'm sorry, I'm from California, so when I ask questions, I'm usually used to answers. In New York, you guys don't talk back.
Sure.
You guys don't even look to each other in the street. It's like, Chase asks a question, and everyone's like, and he says a funny joke, and I'm laughing, and nobody else is laughing. It's
That's-
okay
it wasn't
to
a funny
laugh.
joke. That's fine.
I'm sitting there, and I would like to give Chase a round of applause because I
Oh.
felt seriously. No, I'm not even lying.
It's a big
I'm not
message.
even lying.
All right.
I felt for the first time, it's somebody who is disseminating information and inspiration, and not about themselves. It's about y'all. It's about everybody here in this room. It's about us and what we're doing with it.
So are you saying that I inspire you?
At this moment, yeah. Quite frankly, yes.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled. Appreciate it. I do want to hear someone who's not
Well, I think
impressed
that
by me.
statement about it's a great time to be a photographer, it's a great time to be an artist. I mean, the definition of photographer is changing, right? I mean, it's artists. The photographers, they're doing so much more than photography. And I'm not a photographer. I'm a photo editor. I'm a former photo editor. But I build websites now, and that's my art. And I'm able to communicate that through the social media, and I'm able to create tools for photographers to help share their work, and I'm really excited about this time as well. I think it's a great time to be an entrepreneur, but an artist, somebody who creates value, for society. So
Yeah, and that's Daniel Pink's message from that book is that it's our time. Us right-brainers. We get to drive the bus.
And if you break out of the sort of the cog mode, which I think is in all these books as well, because I've read many of them as well, the cog mentality, which, when I was a photo editor, I was a part of this process, but when you become an entrepreneur and an artist, you break out of that. And the tools that are available now just make that possible. I mean, it's really, I'm amazed that I'm sitting here with all these people, and then I get invited to come to these events just because I blog. I live in Colorado. I mean, I'm so far out of the scene as you could get, but I can write a daily post about what's going on in the photo industry because I can check Twitter and I can check Facebook and I can check all the blogs. I know what's going on. I can stay connected. I can email with photographers who are doing stuff. I can do phone interviews. It's amazing. It's just, I mean, this is the epicenter of photography, but do any of you guys live here? No.
On purpose. Mostly
Right?
because I would never
None
sleep.
of us live here.
I live in
Amazing
Brooklyn,
town.
but not here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
cool.
buddy.
We got a Brooklyn.
Sorry, buddy.
We got a
But
Brooklyn.
originally I'm from
Brooklyn's
Ontario,
not
Canada.
in the epicenter. I'm sorry. I'm just
No, but pick up, like Rob's saying, he's agreeing with me if I'm not mistaken, that it is the most unique time. And photographers got to be put in quotes, because photographers are filmmakers, are they marketers, are they entrepreneurs? If you make an iPhone app, what are you? What are you, Joey? How do you?
I don't know. I ask myself that every day. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you've got fine art, you do commercial art. I mean, like, do you put photographer in a quote when do you
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable when you say introduce yourself as a photographer?
No.
No?
I tell people I'm a photographer, and if I don't want to talk, I just say I work at a restaurant. It's a lot easier.
In your soul, like, do you think of yourself as just a photographer? Because I've heard you
no,
talk. Yeah.
no. I mean, I do a bunch of things. I'm me.
Yeah.
Like I'm you, like as you said.
Yeah, it's not about
I'm one
us.
of those people.
Vince, a lot has changed for you since you picked up the first kind of cinema experience of your career.
I think a lot changed.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Vince's mic's cooked.
Hello.
Hello. There we
I'm
go.
behind the podium.
Yeah,
A lot of you talk about inspiration, and people use a lot of adjectives when they introduce me about being innovative and forward-thinking, etc.
that's because you're awesome, dude.
No, the reality is I've always been a late adopter. I hated blogs. I thought they were the most self-serving I don't want to read about
Would
this
you tell
photographer.
the audience who talked you into it?
Well, the two influences are here that influenced me to start blogging. You were one of them and Rob was the other. Because I read his blog and your blog and I was like, oh, they're not just talking about themselves and their pictures. They're talking about other things that are actually much more interesting. They're introducing me to other concepts and people that I wouldn't otherwise know. There might actually be something behind these blogs. I worked with a great lady. I worked with the New York Times. So not exactly forward thinking. I was part of the box. In fact, I was in the box. They call the New York Times the velvet coffin or the golden handcuffs because you never leave.
Right.
And so you guys inspired me to blog. Had I not started to blog, I would not have put Reverie anywhere because I wouldn't have had anywhere to put it. I wouldn't have started building an audience. Newsweek sent me to the Olympics, and they realized that they didn't publish an issue in the middle of the Olympics. Whoops. So they asked us to blog, and that really started things. In the end, though, same with Twitter. I started twittering very late. In the end, though, nothing has made me feel more alive than sharing. When I hold back, I feel a sense of guilt.
Isn't it weird? There's
It's really
something
weird.
that
And
pulls
when you give away, the best gift I was ever given was by my mentor, Ken Irby, threw me out of his office when I was 16 or 17 and showing him my portfolio, on a winter day in New York and Long Island, saying, how in the world did you get in here? You're not a photojournalist. And 7 years later, he married me to my wife, so.
You're still not hired, though, right?
What's that?
You still weren't hired?
Definitely not hired. But the point is, things change, and I think the models that we are all aware of, the career paths that we've been taught to follow, no longer exist. And the way of doing things, the way of you work for a small paper, then a medium-sized paper, then a large paper, then a major magazine, and then maybe you become famous and do books, etc., no longer exists. Going to business school, getting a PhD, it's definitely a good thing. Education never hurts.
Right.
But it's no longer guaranteed.
So there's a million paths.
There are paths that have yet to be invented, and technology and the social networking is inventing new ways to work with other people on discovering what those are. And instead of being told what to do, instead of following someone else's plan, you can create your own. And that's what feels so fascinating about being alive today.
Right now. And Zach, you're a great example of that. You definitely created your own plan. And if I'm not mistaken, you tried the other people's plan first, right?
Yeah, I tried to go down the proper way, and I tried to do it with, okay, I need to build a book, and I need to assist. And I went to photo school, I assisted, I managed a studio, and then it was like, now I need the professional equipment, now I need all of this stuff, and I was going down that route. I was going heavily into debt with it and lost it all. And coming back into it, I didn't have much, and I lost a marriage because I did it wrong the first way, and I was trying a very traditional path.
What about when you reinvented that path?
It was what you're not supposed to do.
It was backwards, right?
Right. I didn't have the professional equipment. I sure as hell didn't have any professional lighting. I didn't have a backup camera. I didn't have when I went freelance, I didn't have 6 months of money in the bank. I didn't have the right lenses. I didn't have anything. And the first time someone asked me to do a workshop on lighting, I said no because I had a busted up old camera and an old flash, and I would go to events, teaching where all the students had better gear than I had.
Nice.
And
So it's the gear doesn't matter?
gear doesn't matter.
What?
Gear doesn't matter. Because if gear mattered, then all the masters whose shoulders that we walk on, they would have never been able to
They
do
didn't
it.
have 10 frames a second. I'm grateful that we do because it helps us make pictures in an easier way. But you're a classic example of a great story that it's not about that. And I probably should have used you as an example in my presentation. There are a million ways to get to where we're going now. And when you get there, you don't even know what you're called.
Right. My thing now is our next branding push is I'm trying to push my photography without using my photography. That's because the beauty of there's a million paths now. Now it's like, well, shit, what do I do? Because it's kind of there's no roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a common theme, is breaking the rules. I mean, the school of hard knocks, really.
Yep.
A lot of us came, like Vincent shooting a
to film on a camera with no manual on like how it's supposed to operate. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, that takes some serious balls, man.
You just go. You just do it.
You just
You
do
know,
it, right?
The
I mean,
moment
Right,
you
it
worry,
is.
fear is the worst thing in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Fear of change and fear of
Fear of-
trying new things.
Fear of failure.
Will just freeze you up. And after Reverie, I was frozen for a year because I was like, God, the next film I'll make is going to definitely suck, and everyone's just waiting to do things. I didn't shoot much for a year, and it was a big mistake. You know, like you, I want to do more films.
Yeah.
But when you talked about being ostracized, and I think that's a very
Absolutely.
good point. When I left the New York Times, I had colleagues who wouldn't talk to me because it was a horrible insult to them that a staff photographer would leave the paper. That was the job for life. The New York Times staff photographer. That's the pinnacle. And I have one photographer, who's a good friend, who won't talk to me because to him, in his culture, that was the goal in life.
Right.
And to voluntarily leave that is like, people told me I was crazy.
Yeah, but you highlighted something, that culture, that culture. And that's what I was trying to say in one of my last slides. Like, we need to redefine that culture. The people up here are acting as a bridge from that old culture to the new one. And that's what I'm requesting of anyone who's in this audience today. Jasmine, tell me, like, meteoric rise. What in the hell have you done? This is, it's mind-boggling. You picked up a camera 4 years ago, right?
Yes. So
Tell the people.
It's not about the camera.
it's definitely not about the camera. And I think that the same way that Chase was stiff-armed in the beginning, I think that a lot of times myself being a newer photographer, very much like Zach, I started with a very simple camera. I started with a Canon 20D and the kit lens. And for everything I lacked, I had a lot of heart. I was in law school. I walked away from a full ride. My mom had brain cancer. I left to be with her. And during that time, I kind of realized I was really unhappy with life and I didn't like the trajectory. I didn't want the corner office. I wanted to do something greater. And thankfully, my mother recuperated, but that was a juncture in my life. And I then made the decision to follow what I wanted to do, despite not having a formal education and not having everything. So I did everything very much like Chase, backwards. And it works. And just like Zach is rebranding his photography business to be everything but photography, I didn't have photography to start with. I didn't even know how to turn my camera on. I had never touched a digital camera in my life prior to 2006. January 2006 was the first time I had touched a digital camera. And I shot my very first wedding in October of 2006. I shot 2 more weddings that year, and in 2007, my husband and myself started our business with 40 weddings. And that went all on a Canon 20D, rented all our lenses. I rented his camera. I didn't have a website, didn't have a studio. We had a total beater Honda Accord. I was meeting at Starbucks. Can I get an amen anywhere?
Amen.
Does this story sound like okay? Okay, like
The
it
woman, she can lay it on thick.
Well, my daddy's a preacher, okay, not at church, but at church. So when I don't know, if somebody over here said amen, I was like, oh, you go to church. But yes, so I think it just goes to show that it does. So much of it does rely on our work, and yet so much of it does not rely on our work and our credentials and the purported laurels in which we rest upon in this industry.
Sure.
It's turning upside down, and if you're not willing to embrace that, then I think that you're going to be behind the curve.
Yeah, the upside down part is, again, something I was trying to harp on in my presentation, and it is really one of the reasons that I selected everybody here, I asked everyone, begged you all to spend your time here. And Joey, no exception, like, I think I started being familiar with your photography when you were 15.
Yeah,
Are you-
15 or 16.
Yeah.
Which was last year.
Yeah.
Just
Beat me to
kidding,
the
I'm
punch.
totally kidding.
Was that, and tell me though, did that, what's that? Yeah, move your mic up, they say,
All
Rob.
right.
All of this is very much in line with the way you came up. You tell us your path. I mean, it's very, very different. Different than even everyone here. We have a whole range of schools from the New York Times, Pulitzer Prize winning photo school. You went to art school, right? Or where'd you go to? How'd you learn to be a photo editor?
I didn't. I mean, that's the thing. It's the same kind of path, like School of Hard Knocks.
God, School of Hard
I
Knocks.
started working for photographers and freelancing as a photo editor. And I got my first big job at Outside Magazine as the photo editor. And I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was just out there. And so that sort of like just trying to figure out the job from scratch and trying to figure out how, you know, there's the traditional way of doing it, and there was just, I'll just make it up as I go. And so I think I have that in common with everybody here, which is pretty interesting. I kind of didn't realize that, but yeah, it's like you just make it up as you go. And Outside Magazine's in Santa Fe, so it wasn't really connected to the photo industry. So it was one of those things where I couldn't talk to other photo editors. I couldn't get mentored. I couldn't figure out like what's a photo editor supposed to do. And so that was sort of the impetus for me starting a blog, is like there are photo editors out there who want to know like the business side of it and what it's like to work in a magazine and what it's like to work inside of a big gray box in New York City on 52nd Avenue. And so I started blogging about that, like, you know, talking to my editor and meeting photographers, and there was a lot of interest in that right away.
I love that. And let's go back to you, Joey. Like that, 15 years old. What was the landscape like for you? What was motivating you to be so different than all of your friends?
Well, I was 16 years old.
16, that's right.
I've been doing it professionally for about 4 years, but I've always made like home movies since I was a kid. Like when I was 7 years old, I had these home movies of me being chased by dinosaur puppets, where we put them in front of the camera so they're bigger than the guy in the background and eat them. Like that's what I come from.
Yes.
But when I first started, when I was 16, you know, I did a lot of local music and local bands. I'm from a small town in Ontario, and then I never assisted for anybody. I'm like you in that way.
Yep.
And then the bands got a little bigger, but I always had shot them in a very commercial style, the same kind of style that I'm working toward now. And I've kind of always shot them in this way so that when my first portfolio was made, it looked like it was valuable. It looked like I'd shot more valuable things than 4 guys in an alleyway. I would like use them for the subjects in different kind of concepts and things like that. So that when I first went around and showed my portfolio to all my clients that I have now, it looked like I had a lot more work and done more things than I actually had.
And what was the insight that told you that was a good way of doing it? That's what I mean. Maybe it's intuitive. I'm trying to connect what you did and why with what somebody out there might want to do, or somebody out there on the internet. Like what was there's a keen sensibility, but what made you do it?
It just felt right. I don't know.
You know, some sort of innate
Yeah,
creativity.
I mean, like I've been around on a lot of internet forums when I first started, like, you know, asking people like what a shutter is and what an aperture is. As far as like business and things like that, that's all just been learned through trial and error and making mistakes and reading a lot of books and trying things out. And it's not like now that I'm up here, like I got it all figured out. Like I still, like, there's the misconception that there's like this safe level, and it's not. It's just like, it's just I always try new things. I'm always doing new things, seeing what works. And the thing is, you'll probably hear about the things that do work, but then the things that don't work, I just don't tell anybody about those things. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to go to the phones, as they say. And the thing that's coming up, I mean, there are a ton of questions here, but more than anything is, Chase, holy cow, how did you get all these people on the same stage? Can we get a round of applause for this group of people, you guys? Seriously. A lot of the word hero appears a lot on this page right now, and again, I'm humbled. So, we're educating ourselves. This comes from Steve G. Photog. We're educating ourselves in the new creative way. How do we educate our clients in this new creative way? It's a very tough question for me to answer, so I'm going to push it onto one of you suckers.
Zach?
Yes.
Sorry.
Buddy,
How do we educate our clients? Our clients are not this other being from another planet. They're people hanging out. As I go out and I meet more art directors and photo editors, you know, one thing that looking outside at like Joey's life, thinking of him at 16, 17, shopping a book, just looking from the outside, one thing I imagine that would work for Joey is that he didn't know, or you didn't know how intimidated you should have been walking into their office.
I'm probably still pretty naive.
Right, but that's kind of your thing, and you're not afraid. You know, you talked about how fear kills things. So when I'm meeting with a client, it's not I'm not putting on a helmet and Kevlar and about to go to war with them. I need to find out what their needs are. I'm a photographer, and I am in the creative industry, but I call it more I'm in the service industry. So I need to find out what who my client is, what do they need, and I have to understand that they're under a lot of pressure. They're under pressures of budgets now. One of my favorite music magazines closed shop. And we can look at I've heard so many photographers say, oh, look at magazines, they make $40 million a page for advertising. You know how much it costs to print that stuff?
Yeah, they're dropping like flies, and Rob knows
Yeah.
that really well.
They're in, their whole world is in turmoil right now.
Right.
And if we're coming into their, in battle, we need to come to them and say, what do you need, what are you looking for? And they're gonna say, this is my budget, this is what I need. And you have a conversation about it.
Right.
And I believe I have 3 values. And my business manager and I fight over 2 of them. There's the economic value of the jobs I do. There's the creative value of the jobs I do. And then there is the opportunity value. So we sometimes take jobs that the economic value sucks,
Yep.
but the creativity is there. And so when I'm talking with a new client and they say, I'm sorry, but I don't have that kind of budget, then I say, give me more creativity over it.
Yeah, that's a great
Or-
trade.
We're gonna put this person in front of your camera who I never could have called into the studio.
Right.
You're gonna put Dallas Austin in my studio for 2 hours. Yes, let's talk. And then it's my job to work that new network and that new relationship.
But there is definitely an education that's going on.
There's
and
an
I-
education.
Yeah, and I think Vince wants to talk a little about education.
It's about listening.
Yeah.
You know, it's two-way communication. And it's about me finding out who they are, who their client is,
Sure.
what those needs are, and me educating them on what I can do, what I know, what I can offer, and how we can get there in a mutually beneficial way. And sometimes how I'm not the right person for certain things.
Yeah, that's really important.
Because I don't
yeah.
want to do certain things. I'm not good at certain things. I recognize my weaknesses more than anyone else. There's another thing I want to talk about really quick that you hit on.
Sure.
And I've always had a very extreme view, which is probably not accurate. But I don't believe in talent. I never have. And I've definitely never relied on it. Maybe talent does exist. I do believe there are geniuses out there. But for the most part, the majority of us aren't born with talent. We cultivate it. And I think everyone's a creative person inherently, and I really agree with the Newsweek stuff you showed. And I think the beauty of it is unlocking it. And that's why, to me, the social networking thing is really interesting. The people that I want to meet and be inspired with, to be very honest, are people I don't know yet.
Yep.
Are people that we don't know yet. I get more joy out of thinking how these HD SLRs will help discover the new Spielberg, because that person would not have had access to a
Yeah.
Panavision.
It was going to be $150,000 for them to have a mediocre camera, and now it's $1,500.
Right, and it's about uncovering that talent. I think all these old systems of working for the studios, working your way up for film school to get access to 60 millimeter film, et cetera, it's gone. The scary part for everybody is you can't hide behind that anymore.
Right.
You can't hide behind a techno.
But shouldn't we? I don't know about you guys, but shouldn't we love that? Because when I think about it, giving a bunch of information away, it used to be like, oh, geez, aren't you worried about what's? And it's, hey, look, that is one hell of a motivator. If you're willing to share most of the people, in truth, like I can tell you how to do it. Here's the hammer. Here's the nail. Here's how you hit it. Because of that talent thing that you articulated, the few people who are willing to take those steps and do it, they succeed, and I want them to succeed because we're a band together. We're like a wicked boy band of photographers. Like, we got to stick together. A rising tide floats all the boats, and if someone's going to come into the industry, I sure want them to be educated, and I want to share everything I can with them.
I can tell you how Jasmine did it, in that because we met when you were just getting started. Jasmine came to one of my workshops.
Very beginning.
Yep.
And I tell this story all the time. So you said, okay, I had this camera, I had no photography. So she's like, I'm becoming a photographer, but I don't have photography education. But here's what happened. She signed up for my workshop, and a few weeks before the workshop, I get this amazing freaking envelope. I still have it. I get this envelope in the mail. I open it up. It says, hi, Zach. My name is Jasmine. I just signed up for your workshop. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Signed, Jasmine Starr. And the card was amazing. It just was like, wow, look at this. It wasn't just like you didn't go down to Kmart and get yourself a card. then we did the workshop, San Diego at Sarah Francis' house, and I fly home, I'm unpacking my gear, and there's another envelope. I open it up, and I knew immediately who it was from. Like, you had your brand, like, before you had your lens, almost. You had people skills. You had a way to connect. I immediately remembered who you were because of the introduction and then the thank you note, and I knew who you were.
Beautiful. We're inside of 10 minutes, so what I got to do is I got to go to the audience out here. Raise your hand if you have a question, because I want to ask that question here on stage. You were really quick. Go ahead right there, please. I can barely see you, but I know you're there. You're going to have to pipe up loud, and I'll repeat your question for you.
My name's Leon Saperstein.
Hi, Leon.
I love everything you said. Thank you very much.
Thank you for loving everything I said.
Thank you for the inspiration. And I agree with you 100% that we are in an era of a social network with everything, Facebook, Twitter, everything.
Yep.
Means of communicating instantly with the world. But I disagree with the there is no talent comment.
Okay. So, well, go ahead. Sorry.
You know it?
I wonder what your commentary would
Controversial.
be on somebody that spent the last 10 years in a shoebox developing their talent.
Okay. So his point is he disagrees with Vince. He thinks there is talent. And if is there more?
Well, the aspect of sharing that with millions of people.
Sure. So there's a talent in creativity, and there's also a talent in sharing. Is that what you're getting at? Okay, I'm going to comment on that because I think that's what your question is. And I think Vince is probably overstating it. Not that there's no talent. You have to have somewhat of an eye. But I think the main message is you're cultivating all this.
Cultivate talent.
Right.
You're not necessarily born with it innately. That's what I meant.
There's a
Of course
million
there's talent.
talented people who are not doing anything with it. And as far as the question about having talent with sharing, what do you think about that? Because a lot of photographers talk to you, Rob. They say, how do I share? What am I put my stuff out there and no one comes and looks at it, right? I mean, what kind of advice do you give?
I feel very strongly, obviously, about blogging and Facebook and Twitter as a means of communicating. And I think magazines are crazy, newspapers are crazy not to hitch their wagon to photographers and writers who know how to cultivate an audience, because that is the future. That is how you're going to get your message spread. And some of the companies that are here have figured it out already. I mean,
Right.
Canon and Nikon, they almost by fluke, it looked like to me, they figured out, like, we can get our message out to a huge audience. You know, I had a photographer tell me, like, yeah, whenever Nikon releases a new product, I can't even read my Twitter because it's jammed with, like, everybody retweeting Chase Jarvis, Nikon, you know, it's like I can't get any messages because it's flooded. And so the value of social media to, you know, content creators is enormous, but it's even more enormous to those publishers who used to have, you know, monopoly on it.
Definitely. Another question from the crowd? Put it high. I know there's a lot of hands. There you go. You, sir, in the kind of the middle there, stand up and yelp it at me. I got to hear you loud and clear. Sure. Okay. The question is, what's the best way for young artists to break into the industry? I'm going to qualify that before I pitch it over here to these guys, that if I could answer that in a sentence, I'd be a very rich man.
I got it.
I'm a 10-year overnight success, but Rob's got it.
Follow your path.
Follow your path.
All these guys, if you listen to them talk, they followed their path. They didn't know what the path was. They just followed it.
Yeah, did you know
And
what
they
you're
ended up
going?
Yeah, did you
they
know what
just
you're
kept
following?
going.
I mean, I'd just like to say, you said young artist. I think it's the same for anybody. Just take it with the same professionalism that anybody else would.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with age. I think it's concept, like how developed are you as an artist? And the idea of a path, and people say, oh, I don't have my look. The way you get a look, and interrupt me or put my foot in my mouth for me if I'm blowing this, but is you have to take a lot of pictures. You're not going to come out, you're not going to be birthed with a style. You need to find that style through exercising your ability to create and share.
And you need endurance.
You do, absolutely you need endurance.
It's a long haul.
You know, what I was trying to say about the lack of talent is that there's no substitute for hard work. You know, Chase Jarvis does a very good job of looking relaxed and cool and have a drink in his hand on his profile page. I don't know many people who work as hard as Chase does. Okay, and that's the deep, dark secret. And what I was trying to say by there's no such thing as talent is that you assume that all the talented people out there were born with it. I know a lot of them, personally. I've worked with, side by side with some of the best sports, news, editorial photographers. And there's one common string amongst all of them. They work incredibly hard. And for the young person who's either young at heart or in age, I would say if you want to become known or develop your career, ask yourself one question. It's the hardest question in life, which is, what do you have to offer? What makes you unique or not unique? But you have to ask yourself the hard questions.
It is absolutely a ton of hard work. Now, we're just about out of time. Z, do you need to say one more thing? You got to keep it short, brother.
I feel like I'm just coming into my skin, and it's taken me 15 years to get here.
15 years.
And
So
I'm
you've heard all
just
10,000 hours.
getting
Okay.
there.
Hang on just one second. Clap for these people now. All right. Thank you so much. Now, 1 minute, in closing here, 1 minute. These people are going to be around for the rest of the week. Just very quickly run through where the folks out there can find you this week. What are you doing, Vince? You got to, as fast as you can say it.
Shoot New York City, the brown color thing.
There you go.
And here.
Right here. Z?
Brown color and white seamless 3:30 on Saturday.
Sweet. Rob, are you going to,
I'm moderating a panel right here at 3:45.
at 3:45? We'll see if we can't do something about that. And Joey?
I just came from a long stint shooting, first in the UK, then in Las Vegas, and you can find me sleeping.
Beautiful. Jasmine, where are you going to be?
I'm going to be speaking today at 3:45.
Where?
E12.
E12.
E12,
It
yes.
sounds like it's like sunk my battleship. I'm on the way out of here just after this. I'm going to be at the back signing copies of my new book. And please join me one more time in thanking everybody up here with a huge round of applause. Thank you. That's it.